So, like I said, I'm anticipating Ms. Tran being available at 7:30. We'll work our way through that, and maybe a little earlier if possible. But until then, we'll just start. Miss Knight, can you hear me?
I think she got a connectivity issue at her end. She says she can hear, but she can't be unmute on her end.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can. Thank you. I just want to make sure at least the ones we know about, we have them here. So at this point, we'll start with the work session, and we'll start off with the easy ones. We have the city attorney, Ms. Ransaw with Smith, Wells, Webb, and White. We had requested that they introduce ourselves, and we'll let her start.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Lawana Ransaw, and I'm with Smith, Wells, Webb, and White, and myself and Andy Welch will be representing the city of Morrow, and we're just happy to serve.
Oh, excellent. Anyone want to ask any general questions, introduction questions? Let's start with the easy one. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am a native of Riverdale, Georgia. I went to school here in the area. I served for 12 years with the Honorable Albert Collier in Clayton County Superior Court before his retirement. And then I went to private practice with Smith, Welch, Webb, and White, where I practiced municipal law, educational law, as well as governmental entities work. So,
Excellent.
that's my practice area.
And how many years you been with Smith Welch?
I've been with Smith Welch for 7 years.
Oh, that's a while.
Yeah.
Excellent. And any Ms. Knight, you have any questions?
Not currently, no.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Because she's not going to stay.
Oh, she's not?
Right, so she's just doing a
I mean,
brief
just-
introduction.
Oh, okay.
And then she's going to leave, and we'll pull Warren up here, I believe, to have the next question. So I know we had a discussion, we wanted to be able to meet them. We've met them before, but we wanted to bring them out here tonight and let everybody talk to them if they want to. Well, that was really short and sweet.
Very short and sweet. Well, thank you so much. I won't be a stranger. I promise I'll be back, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you very much.
Take that box.
Okay, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you. Can you take this box and Oliver, take it to the box? The box under the table.
And before we get into the regular section agenda, we're going to move item 4 to number 2. Get Warren's here, and let's have a little bit of a discussion. Warren obviously, manages the conference center, and we want a little bit of an update, as well as we had some ideas about marketing and different sections there, and then just veering off of that just a little bit. You were here, what, 45 days? How long ago?
About a month ago.
Just 30? It seems like forever.
I know, we're about a month ago, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good. Just tell us a little bit about kind of like your, profit loss, from that standpoint, kind of what we're doing. And we don't expect miracles. Obviously, you've got to have some type of, we want to see like a slow and steady progress. So this would be something that we would anticipate, working with you coming forward, is to say every so often, just kind of come in. The better you do, the less you have to see us. But as long as we're still losing money, we want to keep track of that and to make sure not only the time is accountable, but that we're doing the best we can. And we have some serious, minds in this room who might be able to help.
Yeah.
And we'll do the best we can. And then at least if we're still losing money, we're all losing money together. But we're not going to do that, right?
Right, exactly. So I believe we have signed one contract since we last met. It's for about $2,900. We haven't really seen, I think we've seen about 2 more refunds, and that's it. Just people who have had conventions or big events that just simply can't, they don't feel comfortable. Their vendors are pulling out, their speakers are pulling out, everything is just falling apart for that event. So of course we have to do, we have to refund. But we have seen an uptick, serious uptick in phone calls and requests. We've had a ton of proposals out. We've extended our time for response time for proposals to give people more leniency and stuff like that. But as far as losses, nothing major. We're starting to move towards doing our own thing now as well. So there's an event called Table for 4 that we're doing on July 25th. It's a socially distanced culinary experience. It's going to be fantastic. Tickets are on sale. They went on sale on Sunday. We're going to see some great things with that. We have a celebrity chef and celebrity designer all working with that, so it's going to be great. Yeah.
We'll send us some information.
I will. Yeah, I will.
Carl always likes to eat, he likes to buy tickets.
Oh, good. Excuse me, it's a little hot here. Excuse me.
So, I do want you to talk about the proposal that you, just signed for Kings of the South.
Yes.
Just introduce the council, for those who don't know, what is it?
Sure.
And how is it different this year than it has been in the past?
Sure. So Kings of the South is a motorcycle club here in Atlanta, in the Metro Atlanta area. They have a 7,000 person event at the Morrow Center using both the outside and the inside every year. I believe for the last 3 years now. This year it will look a lot different because we just finished a new contract today. It will be limited to 1,000 people tested with, some people will be tested with thermometers. They'll be requiring face masks. It'll be outside only, no inside access, only a cash room, things like that. So it'll be a lot different, but it's a fantastic event. So the whole South Bay community comes together, increases security, things like that. So of course, Chief Calloway is excellent, and of course Chief Swin as well. So that's what that is, and it'll be a muted version of it this year. So
Now, the mask requirement is theirs?
theirs, yes.
We saw a proposal, like that's of events plan.
Yes, so marketing, marketing to event planners. So using the power of the hashtag, that's pretty much self-explanatory, really putting those on every social media post so we can kind of get our word out there, get our message out there even more just on an organic level. And then using a 4-step touch point in terms of email introduction, phone calls, and then of course a venue tour and email list edition. We've already started. We're seeing some good responses. We have 2 tours already set up for next week. So this is just an easy way, very inexpensive way to do things. It's a grind. It's a lot of legwork, but it's valuable, extremely. So, yeah.
Have you thought about, and we're not ready for this yet, but I'm just saying in the future, from the standpoint of potentially the exhibit space next door and being able to,
Yes.
in terms of a thought process, I realize it has to materialize, but how would you change what you're doing right now to that? In other words, if we could do it, and we had some type of timeline for a deliverable, what type of window do you need to be able to start the market?
To do the exhibit space?
Yes.
I need some time to think about that. Let me get back to you. I would just need to brainstorm about that. I don't want to just arbitrarily speak about how I would immediately convert that over because I need some time to really think about that.
Well, but if I may, and I apologize, Mayor, but it is a conversation you've had a lot, because you and I have talked about it. So
Yeah.
I don't want to imply that you haven't thought about it. You may not be ready to articulate it.
Yeah.
And I think what the mayor may be also suggesting is, as you're doing this lots of legwork in the event planner world, if they need an expanded space in their portfolio, they need to be seeing more than just the Morrow Center. Would you say that's fair, Mayor?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it says, oh, by the way, if we could, would you have an interest in that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we sometimes our events are or our contracts are lost, or proposals are lost because of our space, and it goes right over to the GICC. And if we can get, of course, an expanded space, that would allow us to compete on a very major level with the GICC and any other surrounding, venue of that size, like the World Congress Center, et cetera, et cetera. Even some of these large churches now are doing big events, and they're getting the contracts. So yeah, from car shows to exhibitions to huge conventions and conferences, but as far as an actual plan putting together, I would need some time to put that together. Yeah.
Is there a reason that we don't use him to at least facilitate the Welcome Center at such time as we actually have to do something else?
No, it's just, it really hinges on your decision on how to use it. We can, certainly.
But we could market it. It's vacant space at this point, right?
Sure. Just as rental space.
The Welcome Center?
Yeah.
Well, much smaller, but the point being is it's a lot easier to control, right?
Mhm.
It's something else to add to the list if you're already in it.
Absolutely. Is there a new plan for the Welcome Center? Is it going to be a new iteration of something, or is it going to
At
be a
this point,
space?
it's, just think of it as trying to use something to make a little bit of revenue off until we come to a conclusion.
Okay.
And then figure out how that conclusion works. And the same thing could be applied with a number of different opportunities in the city itself. So, you know, we have a central square system over there by the university. Right? That's a little bit unique at this point, may not be best for everybody. You still have an old town system that's not quite ready, but it certainly could be.
Okay.
So, nothing else, you have green space sitting out there, and that green space has the ability.
Absolutely.
We can, you know, move forward on some things, visibility to I-75 or otherwise. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we can always offer the products that the city of Morrow has to offer as, you know, just a suite of products. You know, there's all kinds of different events and all kinds of different needs for different events. One thing that you know, I didn't think we had was green space, you know, as far as we can actually sell, because people want to do outside events, especially now because of COVID-19. People love the outside space. So we're actually selling proposals. We have 2 proposals out now for our parking lot. You know, when, of course, we'll help them with tent rentals, getting them to the right vendors and things like that. We are promising, we are, you know, going above and beyond. We have to change our methods, you know, we have to change our business model. It's not just, you know, cash and carry. It's, you have to create a picture for these people now. So that's what we're doing. And so, yeah, green space like that, that would be something I'd be really interested in talking about.
Just mentally put in everything that we own somehow.
Sure.
And then see what's available more so.
Okay. So Sylvia, I can give it, okay.
Yeah, she's gonna go.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And anyone have any other questions of Warren?
I do,
Sure.
regarding the King South.
Uh-huh.
Is that affiliated with Harley? Are they gonna
It's not
be part of
affiliated with
that?
them. They associate with themselves on usually a Saturday party. But this year it's only one event, which would be at the Morrow Center, no Saturday party, because it is a Saturday at the Morrow Center. But there's no actual affiliation.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Ms. Knight,
That's right.
do you have any questions?
She got a bit difficult with her computer. She get kind of on and off. She going to straight that out in a few minutes.
You know,
She got an issue with her computer right now.
okay.
That's why we kind of see her on and off. Yes.
So, I do want to mention just a couple cool things.
Oh, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah. So, there's a company called Universal Circus. This company I used to work for. But they're second largest circus in the world now. And the producer of the circus came to the Morrow Center today after a months-long invitation. But she fell in love with the Morrow Center. She had no idea it was on this side of town. She had no idea about the beauty, the majesticness of the Morrow Center. She's coming back on Friday with there's a radio team back in the day called Frank and Wanda Morning Show, and huge, popular across Atlanta. You guys know about it. They're coming back on Friday at 12 to discuss all kinds of possibilities. They told me.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code.
They told me about
They told me
about 7 different ideas. Wanda was on the phone, Denise was here, and they are extremely excited. So definitely opening up our bandwidth, you know, increasing our span. It just doesn't have to be a regular client. You know, we can do more Morrow Center Presents things. We can make our own marketing, make our own products, you know, not just waiting on a client's book or seeking out a client's book, creating things to entice people to come to Morrow. So that's really, really, really cool, and we're excited about that. Also, another part of our changing our business module, there's a fraternity that has booked with us in the past. Omega Sci-Fi is a state chapter of theirs. They came by. They went over to the GICC because they outgrew the Morrow Center, but it was only because they weren't creative with the space. So we got creative with the spacing, using both the industry room as a seasonal rental in February and combining that with the ballroom and the other rooms and all the assets of the Morrow Center. And you know, we really painted a picture in terms of labeling the rooms. Like the ballroom would be the Gold Gatsby, the industry room is the Secret Garden, and they loved it. They were like, oh, we love it. We're gonna do it. So that's part of our changing business module to not just say, here's the cost, here's the space, you know, of course being accommodating and inviting, but really painting a picture. So we're gonna start getting more into that so that people have more of an incentive to say, let's go with the Morrow Center. So just some cool things to add on too.
Yeah, I saw some of your, the advertisements on Facebook. You know, something that we talked about. So, that looked pretty good.
Cool.
Any questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ms. Renee, are you back online?
She's back on. She's back on, yes.
I'm on the call.
You have any questions for Mr. Warren?
No, not currently.
We'll see you in another month.
If I may, Mayor, because I want to make sure that Councilwoman Dean's was answered accurately. Remember when we met with Gene
Yes.
and the two guys from Harley
Mhm.
about Kings of the South?
Yes.
Why were we meeting with them about, I guess I'm confused too about how is this not affiliated with them, if they were planning the original?
No, they were never the planners of the event. So it's something called the Kings of the South Mother chapter, and a gentleman named Aubrey Ford or something
Okay,
like
I
that.
remember him from last year. So
Well, he's new.
So Kings of the South, Kings of the South is their own affiliation.
Yes.
But they somehow asked maybe the Harley dealership to
Yeah,
facilitate for them?
it's no more than a friendship from what I can gather.
So since you're right across the street, can you go over there and find some stuff out for us? So we're not coming in at home, maybe it's something that simple?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You talking
okay.
about with Harley?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm meeting with Monique from Harley on Friday at 3. Yeah.
So I just didn't want Councilwoman Dean to have the impression there was no tie, because there is some, at least at a
Yeah, it's
facilitating
a
role.
friendship, yeah, it's association, but no actual contractual or, chapter bylaws thing, yeah.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
And then, just coming forward, on a monthly basis, I'd like a profit loss.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's more than just your salary, obviously, it's lights, power, gas, the different things that go with it. I realize it's not gonna be the most, endearing piece of
pretty.
information piece I ever saw. But at the end, we're accountable for that. So there has to be a direction, and we're gonna help get there.
I can bring that.
That's our objective as well.
Sure.
So, and I imagine the finance department will help you with that.
Yes, I'm in communication with Angela and Han quite a bit.
All right, that'll work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, make some contact on, with some event, big event planner that we talked about.
Yep, that's something but we already started. Yeah.
Thank you.
Which was what?
During the last meeting, do you remember that we had talked about, you didn't talk to Warren because he wasn't here, but you had communicated with me and the mayor specifically about how do we market to the event planner, some of the people that are, and so you see some of that information in your packet. That's what, is that right, Council? Yes.
Right.
And we have 122 that we found and we're reaching out to.
Yeah,
Our
that's just
estimate-
in the metro area, right?
in
That's
metro-
not, that's not the
just
whole
local.
state. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and our anticipated date for completion for that is by July 10th, at the latest the 15th.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
And I believe we have the gentleman from the Latin Chamber of Commerce. We might move that one up as well.
Okay, great.
And that way, you don't have to listen to all the boring stuff that we have. But you're welcome, please, come up. And I'm sorry, I don't think I have your name.
Introduce yourself.
Antonio Rodriguez. I'm working with Pensando Promotions. I'm a director, so I'm working for this event with the Latin America Chamber of Commerce. Alejandro Cos is the director for Latin America Chamber.
And I believe you facilitated the Day of the Dead last year and the year before too, or just the first?
No, we hadn't had the wisdom yet to include him in the first year. You just did last year.
Okay, so this last year. And pardon me if I don't understand all of the Day of the Dead. I mean, I've watched Coco, which is very limited, of course, because my children watch it. But we're looking for, reaching out to the community, obviously specifically in this case, the Hispanic community, and having some really cool events. Not for the sake of having an event, but for the sake of actually doing an event, right? If you're gonna do something, let's do it and do it well. And there was some question as to this year with COVID-19, is that something that's gonna make people nervous because it was held on the inside of a building? There was some question as to, is there another event that would be more preferable? In other words, we picked this one, but is there something else that might work that would also be as good or better? And it doesn't mean an either or. It may be, sure, let's look at more than one. So we have an up and coming, Hispanic community, in some cases more younger. But we certainly got, some bedrock that's been around here longer than me. So the idea was, let's bring you in. You're a Chamber of Commerce, you understand business, show off, tell us what miracles we can do to work together and how to take that event and do something with it. And then answer any questions that we may have. And we don't have to have solutions so much as ideas and then reach additional conclusions later maybe. But, so we're not putting you on the spot. It's not designed to be a tough introduction. It's designed to be, let's see what it could be. And you can take it from there.
Okay, yeah. The day of the day is basically the Latin American culture for the celebration of life. So I'm representing the last year this event. It's cultural, basically. No, it's exactly popular, but it's cultural. So this is the point for the day of the day. It's not only in Mexico, it's in Central America too, and a couple of other countries in South America. So this is a live celebration and a culture. And I'm working with the schools close in this area. It's complicated with the schools not working exactly with the chambers or the other associations. But at this event, looking for the connection with all the schools is for cultural events. So the schools open the door for normally with the cultural, any events or any activities for cultural celebrations. The solutions for this year basically is, I like the old town, it's an awesome place. I like it, it's beautiful. Probably this is the best option for the social distancing for this year. Is big, it's awesome, I like it. It's my first time, so I'm surprised in this space. I don't know what, probably you can do more activities in this space, it's awesome. So put it staff for checking with, to in a specific, the city allows in this moment, for example, the COVID, you need more separation or the number of people together, all time changing, the regulations about this. So I think so the big open space is the better option. I'm working with Alejandro about this, all days changing the social distancing and open the restaurants and open the clubs or the halls for this. So if you want to put in a specific note about this, for this event in special, put an extra information for us. You need to change in or you need to move or you need to change for other events, you can put the note about in this comment.
Well, at least on that specific space, we own it. So it's not like it warrants space, you're pretty much gonna have to get in and get out, or at least that's the theory. But over there, you could have it for a much longer period of time to prepare for it, as well as to prepare to take whatever is in there out. Would that not be correct?
Well, I mean, absolutely in terms of the length of the event, but I do want to ask first, what you're saying, I feel like you're saying now is, inside the Morrow Center is not gonna work, because it's just, honestly, for the number of people we could get in there, we do have to ask ourselves as a city, like the investment it takes to put on a good event, to your point. What I then hear you saying is that instead of the Morrow Center parking lot, what you are asking is, could we consider allowing you to set it up at Old Town Morrow? Is that correct? Yes, okay. So, obviously, we would have, that's, if y'all are for it, of course we'll be for it. We're gonna make it happen. The difference will be, of course, weather. And if you remember last year, we had to cancel our own Halloween event, and we had the same event, your event and our event, same event on the same day. So, whereas in Old Town Morrow, you're probably, do you mean being inside the buildings or
No,
just on the
green
okay,
space.
yeah. So, I mean, it's just, the only thing that changes, but no matter where you bring it out of doors, same thing.
Absolutely.
Is whether or not the weather impairs the ability to have the event. And you guys did a lot of decorating last year. How does that translate to an outdoor event?
For the experience for last year, I think this year is more easy. And the outside is better option for decoration. You don't need to cover or protect anything, it's only respect the space and you hang in and singles, papel picado for areas and put my staff for parking, staff for the social distancing, staff for cleaning. Use this budget for this, for specific staff, different areas and different as, you know, as.
Stations, yeah.
exactly.
And I would, is it right for me to assume in my limited knowledge that in the cultures where this is paramount to their celebration, it is always out of doors, isn't it? And it's not, they don't have inside stuff typically in the
No.
different countries.
Normally
Yeah.
it's outside.
So it actually add a layer of authenticity.
Absolutely, yeah, I do, in Westminster, I'm a parent in Westminster School. I do for 6, 7 years in the school. All time is an upside. It's better for different, it's normally it's in the cemetery or the patios in the houses. So normally it's an outside. This is a better option for.
I see, right now it looks like a cemetery, so we're already ahead of the game.
No, here in Mexico. In Mexico, have a different celebrations. It's the Day of the Dead, but different areas. In Michoacan and this in the Pacific, you do it in the cemetery. But no, in my countries, in Veracruz, it's really different. But you know, you could put a fusion. But basically, it's a offsite celebration with the family, everybody together, and remember my parents and say, I'm here, welcome again, I'm waiting for you in celebration. When I start this program, these events in the schools, it's complicated to separate the Halloween celebration with the Days of the Dead. But when I'm starting in Westminster, is all teachers open them about this. It's a celebration of life. It's a thank you. I'm here. I'm remember you. If I remember you, you don't cry. No need. I need to cry. I'm here. You know.
Just like the song.
Yeah.
That's crazy, but it's
Yeah.
like I remember.
Exactly, it is. So this is plan, and the solution I think is better than offside. So I probably need to put the adaptations. If I need to put a big tent, for example, for the stage and the sound system, probably need a big tent for this, or tent for the stations, for example, and probably need adaptations about it. But I know I need to put different ideas or basically it's adaptation.
So I guess in terms of the contract language that we would need to address is, to your point, it just wouldn't be the same thing that explained how it's gonna be in the Morrow Center. We need to understand sort of through the narrative, okay, what do you mean? How's it gonna be set up? How many those kinds of things, like we worked out all the details before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, Mayor, I guess we're gonna have to reach out to them all about parking, right?
I've reached out to Sears, because Sears owns that parking lot right there.
And you think that's an easier conversation?
Yes.
I got a video
We can reach
for-
out to both, just simply because that's polite. But if you're actually asking who physically owns that piece, it's Sears.
I got a video for the last year event, so
The video from last year?
yeah.
You okay with
It's
seeing
in
it?
Sure.
1 minute and 30
Will you
seconds.
flip off some of those lines?
Yeah, I can't pronounce my name in 1 minute, 30 seconds, you're gonna be fine. That should be on the screen if you want to see it. Can Renee see that?
Yes.
And you shot that with the drone? With the drone? Yeah, it looks like that.
How did you, Antonio, how did you get those high up?
Papel
top?
picado.
You can add that to your list there, Warren.
So I'm ready for the next step, so.
We're looking forward. If you, with the exception of this event, which we obviously will work with you, would you foresee any other event that might be interesting? I mean, we've got an area, and certainly we have a large, group of people that we can bring in the interstate and a few other things. I mean,
Yeah,
we've got
absolutely.
access.
I do the bunch events in the Hispanic celebration, the Hispanic Heritage Month normally. The last year, the big event with the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I'm working with the Mercedes-Benz in Home Depot backyard. I do the big event close to the stadium. And working for 30, 40 schools in the mall for promo this, different cultures, different music, different arts, and now different countries for Latinos. Other option is in a Christmas. The name, the Mexican Christmas or La Posada. This is another option for the celebrations, basically cultural celebrations. Cinco de Mayo is popular, but I use it normally
Yeah, I've
for
heard that
restaurants.
one.
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo is more popular, but it's cultural, but it's optional for people. Normally, the people come to the restaurants or the older
Different ones up on the street.
exactly
That's where I was at.
drinking and everything. So it's more party like no, it's like cultural, but I do. I working with 40 restaurants for my company. Do the different performance for the most restaurants in Atlanta. And the other option is in January, the Dia de los Reyes, usually is a celebration with Spain. It's basically in Spain and from in Mexico too. It's the celebration of the Dia de los Reyes. It's like Three Kings. It's another option for events. So I do for other companies, for other cities, with other locations. But this is the event, the last event in Morrow event. I work the same event for the Roswell City too, and I'm working for the consular, Mexican consular for a couple years, but this is my principal event for this area.
Well, I mean, we have a location, and we want you to feel not only welcome, but participatory. In other
Yeah,
words,
it's awesome.
it'd be nice to have all kinds of events happen in the city all day long and bring people in and have them work on their own, because we think it can not only be profitable, but it's a really good idea for
Yeah.
business.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And
This-
tourism in any form is a good one.
Thank you.
We just have to take a little bit different approach, as to say, once you're comfortable here, then it's like, don't overlook us. We certainly have the ability, and then we want to be able to draw you. I mean, given enough time, we've got to be able to advertise just like you do, and be able to make sure that the numbers work, right?
Thank you.
So it's one thing to hold an event and not get very many people there. It's another thing to hold an event and have a really good, and that's what I'm about. Is I want you to not only be successful, I want to compete with anybody else you're doing an event with. The one down in Atlanta, I might not be able to do that one because you're probably bringing out 40, 50,000 people. But I'm comfortable, this area has proven, more than once to bring out anywhere between 5 and, I think we've had 5 for sure, but we might have been north of that on a couple of things that we've had before, So, that's where you kind of start. So I'm pretty sure we can cut our teeth on several thousand people.
How many people do you think were there last year?
Probably in 4 hours is total event, like 1,200 people walking in the middle around here.
Easy enough? And we just, any questions, Mr. Wayne?
Facilities. How do you,
Well, now, when we know we have restrooms, there probably been a minute since somebody's turned them on, and there shouldn't be any reason those don't function. But then I would assume, do they do porta potties or something along those lines for, I assume that's the facilities you're asking about, right?
First, the facilities.
Bathrooms.
Bathrooms, okay, I need to put the adaptations for this outside. Yeah, I need to plan electrical plan, restrooms in different areas.
Over in that section, there literally was a square, and in that square was all the electrical you could use.
Yeah,
It was all-
absolutely,
It all
yeah.
existed. It probably hasn't been dusted off in a minute. And there are restrooms there. Again, it's just a matter of, we gotta make sure they're in the condition we think they are. racks and be able to turn them on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
and
need.
from there, you probably might need a couple more. Depends on how many people you have.
Exactly. I'm working in, the next step is working in what's happening exactly with the areas, what I need or what I have.
Right.
Yeah,
But it'd be
I-
the same if you were in somebody else's parking lot. I mean, in somebody else's parking lot, they'd be putting in restrooms as well.
Exactly. I need to check exactly. This is my first time in Old Town, but I need to check what's happening here, the city can, what I need to do for the city is there are facilities or parking areas, delineate the parking, so what is this, what I put the block there or put the not due capacity here,
Sure.
adaptations.
Well, we'll have a public works director on the ground within a short period of time. City already knows kind of what it is, and the rest of it's just a set of keys, walk around a little bit, and figure out what we got. Okay?
So to be clear, we are
Yeah.
looking at moving the Day of the Dead event from the internal building of the Morrow Center to the campus of Old Town Morrow. And, we'll, to your point, spend some time out there sooner rather than later. Because really, I understand what you're saying about adaptations. I need to make sure there's enough time. So
Exactly.
you need to look at it as closely as you need to,
Exactly.
and then tell me it's doable by, the date.
Yeah, I'm start today or tomorrow for the next step.
And I promise not to be as stressed out as I was last year.
No, I like it. You have it's true. You have a beautiful place in Old Town. I like it. I'm a cultural promoter here. This area is awesome it's great space for different activities, dancing, music, art. Look, awesome. I'm really surprised. My wife's in the car now, so where I'm
Don't leave her
working-
in there.
No, I got my babies to do it. My wife say, wow, this is awesome location for festivals.
Yeah, so no, to this point, doing it outside would be great, because there were some limitations last year, that we had to kind of work through as far as, like you said, the rigging and things like that. But one thing that you might run into that you're gonna have to definitely think about, and we can absolutely help you if you need to, like all the staging, because you'll lose that outside. I think it's gonna be way better outside.
Yeah.
And then power, remember last year, that was
Yeah, but you have more power in Old Town than you
Yeah,
do inside
right,
the Morrow
exactly.
Center.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I know. This is the point again, adaptation. I need to check what I need to do exactly. I need to check with the audio system guy what I need
Yeah.
for the license on system power. And I check if I need to rent the plant or need to rent the stage and the floor. Check the signs. The next step is I'm
Yeah.
checking exactly what I need exactly. With my technical guys, with my staff, make a layout, what's happening exactly, what I can use or no. Probably they need to put the limitation of the areas, or this is the next step exactly.
Do you think that you would have a tent system, like, or just one big tent? Because there were a lot of different components to that last year.
Yeah, but probably it's our idea. Depending on the weather is good, probably need only single tents. Probably the weather is complicated. Need to move or other ideas, but probably cover more with big tents.
Mhm.
I'm checking the big tents with Peachtree tent rentals. Big tents, really big tents.
Mhm.
I know it's expensive, but it's necessary. I need to do this adaptation for this.
Well, do you have any questions?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Miss Knight, do you have any questions?
See you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, anything we can do to help you out, we appreciate you greatly.
Thank you
And
very much.
we'd like to do some more events with you, and we're looking forward to having some fun.
Thank you very much for
And pardon my inexperience with your culture. We'll work
Absolutely.
with it.
You're welcome to that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just, we're gonna hit the review agenda as that'll come into the regular agenda. So the first item is the emergency ladder truck repairs. We talked about that during the regular budget, and the chief had given us some concepts of what that ladder truck was gonna take. And Chief, you wanna just talk about that real quick?
So the ladder truck has some issues, it's 24 years old. We knew that it probably was not going to pass the annual inspection that we're required to have on it, and it did not. So some of the repairs were expected, about $20,000 worth, but he also found some hydraulic leaks that were not that bad at the time of the inspection. About a week or so after the inspection, we were just checking it out one day out front, and we had a major hydraulic leak and had to take the truck out of service. And so we're kind of ahead of schedule of what we wanted to do, but it was gonna sit here out of service had we not gone ahead
And we gotta do
and
it.
schedule the repairs.
Keep it operational. Any questions on that line item, Ms. Jordan? Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, no.
Okay, and we've got that on the consent agenda, we have no issues with that, so what we would do is the regular session, the work session, and the consent agenda, basically, would approve that all at the same time. Okay. Then the next item is the DDA write-off balance, and on that particular one, we have had an IOU, if you will, from the Downtown Development Authority to the city for $3,369,607. It's been on there for a long period of time. And the idea is that distorts your balance sheet in terms of what the city has, and it's real cash. You know, so you can say you have $10 million, but in reality you don't. You've got 7, and you have an IOU for 3 from an organization that is not going to be able to pay you anytime in the near future. And the idea is at some point you write that off. So we want our books to be as clean as possible as we're going through the COVID-19 experience, which basically means we're going to adopt a budget. It's a tight budget, it's a tough budget, you know, but also at the same time, we want to look at our total balance sheet and to make sure that it's not an illusion. You know, what we're seeing is real, something that you can put your fingers on and be able to do. You want to talk a little bit about that, Ms. Angela?
Oh, I was gonna give this, pass this out as well, because it is gonna affect your bottom line this year. So I went ahead and did an equity report that shows the, with that amount in there, because we're gonna end up writing it off the bad debt expense. So, but it will get your fund balance, because right now, as the mayor stated, your last year's fund balance in that first column under the general fund appeared to be like $10.9 million. But in reality, it really wasn't that amount, because you had that $3.6 million receivable on the books. So once we write that off, and it'll get our fund balance down to about $7.2 million, which is what it actually is. It's closer to that. Because in reality, we're sitting on, just in cash alone, we're sitting just for the general fund, we're close to about $8 million. So that's going to put us close to where we actually are, like right now. Once we write that off. Because again, majority of the time, the auditor is going to tell you that if you got a receivable on the book between like a different agency or a different fund, and that other fund's not going to be able to pay that off or pay that other fund back within 12 months, you need to consider just writing it off or just going ahead and transferring that money to the other fund and just giving it to it and saying that's it.
Well, and also remember, every one of our authorities, you know, they can't buy and sell their properties without our approval anyway. So it's not like they're magically going to get rich when they don't have any cash producing properties, and they're not going to divest of anything without our approval in the first place.
Correct.
So it balances it out. And then I assume from the rest of this, if we just walked across all of the assets, and I realize that's expanding on it just a little bit, but let's do this. Anybody have any questions related to that line? Ms. Dorn, anything? Questions? Ms. Knight, do you have any questions related to that one?
Is this additional information that I could in second?
Oh, okay.
It wasn't, she just handed it out
Yeah.
just a
Let
second
me
ago.
send you a picture, sorry.
Can I get an electronic copy? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're about to get an iPhone picture.
What I also did with this balance is, you know, this right now the sanitation fund is mixed in with the general fund. I'm pulling that out and putting it in its separate fund on this sheet, because that's what I'm gonna end up doing before we close out the books anyway.
Correct.
And that's going to also, because last year it had a fund balance of roughly $140,000. So that fund balance has got to be pulled out of the general fund as well. I'm sure the auditor's going to end up readjusting our beginning balance for that amount. So I wanted to show that as well.
And then when you take the other funds that we have, you want to just go over those real quick?
Yeah, the other funds that we have after that, under your special revenue funds, you have three, your confiscated assets funds, which is where the police are seizing property, well, mostly money or money or assets that can be converted into cash. That particular fund, in revenues, we brought in about $3,475. We spent about $46,920. They had a beginning fund balance of $664,727. And so right now that net fund balance is about $21,282,000. The hotel motel fund, it is the revenue we brought in so far. We budgeted roughly $1 million. We've only brought in $690,312 so far. Of that, we allocated out $482,000 part to the general fund. Some of it also went to the tourism product development fund. Right now, that fund balance is sitting at $396,243. That fund balance is, majority of the money that's in there right now, that 107 is going to get allocated out still to the general fund and to the product development fund. The product development fund, again, is right now it's got $107,723. With expenditures of $149,160. And with the fund balance of $537,641. And I can see my numbers off. We're having network problems today, this afternoon, and the software kept crashing on me. My numbers didn't add up there. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, it did. It came out right. So right now, I have a fund balance of about $496,204 in that fund. And I got a question for you, and I'll get to the end and ask you that when I get to the Morrow Center. Under the capital projects funds, you've got the SPLOS, two SPLOSs, your old SPLOS of 2008, which you only really collecting interest revenue on right now. You had expenditures of $34,833. You've got going to have an ending fund balance of $312,010. In the SPLOS 2014 fund, you brought in roughly $1,003,098. You spent $429,807, which gave you a net gain of $573,291. Your beginning fund balance was $2,169,328, with a net fund balance of $2,742,619. I'll tell you that I've got.
One question. And the one that just passed, the 2020 bond, when do they start collecting that?
Oh, it passed.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did.
It did?
So is that a January collection?
Well, it would depend on if they're tier 1 projects, have to come out first.
Well, there weren't
So
very many
maybe into
tier
the
one.
middle. Oh, there weren't?
I see.
Yeah, well.
Don't hold me to that, but it'd be
So
worth
if there
noting.
weren't, then yeah, it would start, but if there is, it's usually like halfway into the year. So.
Let's find out. That'd be a good question to know.
And then I got a lot of, there's a lot of cleanup that's got to be done to your books. Since I've been here, I've been deeply involved in trying to get this budget done, and then the past 2 weeks working on HR stuff of getting the insurance set up and open enrollment done and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, I can't speculate why. For some reason, the previous finance director was charging SPLOS-related expenditures to the general fund. So in the general fund right now, there's about $203,601 of expenditures in it that I've got to find out. $27,000 looks like possibly belongs in the SPLOS 2008 fund, and then another. I guess I'm gonna put this together. I'm gonna put $176,000 could possibly belong in the SPLOS fund. But when I went through, it was hard to tell what they were without sitting down with somebody and going, invoice by invoice, what was this for? So I'm gonna do that, find out what it is, and then bring that back to you all and find out if, one, you wanna keep it in the general fund, or do I need to go ahead and put it in SPLOS? But I think.
And what's our general fund number looking for year end? I think we talked last time that we should still have a positive number just based on.
No, it's not gonna, with this $3.6 million write-off, you're not gonna have a positive note. It's gonna be a negative right now it's a negative $3.6 million.
Right, well, with the exception of that.
With the exception of that, before I put that in there, it was a negative $258, but you still have more revenue to collect.
Right, because a lot of deferrals
Yeah,
and the different.
right, exactly.
Yeah, and like the 2008 bus, for example, and like when we repaired the path, that is an expense that can come out of that, and that's gonna be some of those invoices when we sit down and go over them.
Yeah.
But let's just say, for example, that all of the potential invoices that could be charged against the 2014 SPOS, then our number could become positive.
Right, exactly, yeah, that's another thing that can be done as well. Move some of that around. The sanitation fund, this year, the actual numbers is like, it's in the general fund right now, but I'm gonna move it to the sanitation fund, before in the beginning of July. Once I come back and go through everything and try to do a final budget amendment for 2020, for everything. So right now, they've collected $1,098,418,000 in commercial and residential revenue. The expenditure is $940,467,000, which gives it a net gain of $157,951.49. Like I said, that beginning balance was gonna be zero because it was in the general fund. Now, and so they're gonna probably adjust the beginning balance by at least, I'm saying by at least 140,000, because the sanitation fund was in the general fund for 2 years. And so the previous year, I think FY19 had a positive fund balance too. I don't know if they wanna go back and pull that back out of the general fund or not, or just go back and pull at least 1 year, because I know they'll have to at least pull 1 year, so. That would be a question I can ask the auditor or whatever when I talk to them again. The Morrow Center. The Morrow Center revenue to date is $194,606. Expenditures of $302,449.50. They got a net loss of $107,842. They started off with a net loss of $58,762. Right now, I'm just giving them a net loss of $166,604. My question to you is this: how far in the hole do you want them to go? Before
I mean, at some point, it's the same thing. I can't, like a hotel room from yesterday,
Right.
I can't sell it. It's already done.
Right.
You know, so anything that happens on there in the future, I mean, again, we own the facility. Yeah. So, you know, I think it becomes part of the bigger picture. Is we took a beating on it. We knew we took a beating on it. We just had the gentleman here again today, and obviously we want that to stop. But I can't stop what's already happened.
Okay. So when I come back to you all with a budget amendment, do you want me to go ahead and try to make this whole by, say, we're gonna transfer money either from the general fund or from the tourism product development fund to make it whole, to make it balance?
Well, we've already paid it somehow.
We
right?
paid it,
It's a
right, but
negative
it's
number.
you gotta have a negative.
Right.
you know,
So it's
Right.
not cash we're talking about, it's
just
basically an accounting
right,
deal. And
right.
I'd rather walk out with every annual budget at this point forward, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, being honest with about what it is. You know, due to from, you know, it's like asking somebody who doesn't have a nickel to be able to pay me back in some future date. Really? You know, and if we anticipated them being profitable, we would want them to promote the city better. Right, so it's not even like I want my money back, I don't want to lose money, I think that's insane. But I do want to be able to say, let's do more events, let's do bigger events, let's promote this city so that we can do what we need. Dorothy, what do you think?
You're gonna, as far as, writing it out? Or
Yeah, you're just
gonna
cleaning up the books.
cleaning it up?
It's not gonna change what you spent or didn't spend, that part's already been decided.
I'd rather see it reflect
Accurate.
accurate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Ms. Renee, any comments?
We can see what a hole you're in.
I do want to have an understanding, Ms. Council, as to how profitable are municipal event centers. We've had this conversation in the past, with prior council, having, I think, so much with GICC, and just understanding the value. It may not always be, that profitability, but it may be that unique asset that's in the city. So if we can have a better understanding of how profitable our municipal event centers like GICC, I think there's one out in Douglasville. Maybe someone can reach out and quantify, so to speak, so that we'll have a better understanding of what we have and what value it will add if it's not gonna be profitability in dollars.
I think most of these at least try to break even.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
So the GICC can only break even because it's supported with hotel motel tax dollars. Now, that's what their economic development director will report and has multiple times. And I would like to say too,
But
because
part
I
of
feel
that is
like,
for their bond on the building.
well, that's just from a bottom line profit. You know, they have to, they wouldn't be making money if, and they don't even make money. They don't only break even with the support of the hotel motel tax.
I think that, but I think because of the building they built over there, I think there's a separate law that was written for them, and I think part of that deals with the bonding ability to be able to make that work. So I'm not sure that'd be the best argument that we would have, but there might be others, and we should
Sure,
research
yeah,
research that
and
until we know.
but
the
the difference, I think, here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it's not a situation, if the council were to choose, for example, to take what the loss at the Morrow Center and recover it with product development or hotel motel, that's not a due to and from. That's you're getting reimbursed
Correct.
for an allowable expense,
Right.
which would be different if you covered it with the general fund. You would have to do to and from, but you, obviously you know this, but you, for the sake of the rest of the council, you could legally use your hotel motel tax or product development to cover the losses of the Morrow Center because it's one of the expenses allowed by law. But that may not be your choice, and that's a different question.
I think the first year you just kind of set a different tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously if you're bringing more guests into town, and we know that, right, because our hotels are full for whatever event that you have, or somebody's eating at our restaurants, you know, drinking and different things like that. We know those numbers will go up, and you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to look at it and say, you know, here's your historical trend, and your numbers went up, and all the other different factors. And we could always say why, and there might be some debate as to that, but if you just took it at its face value and you say, we did a better job, and we made a marginal increase, you know, we've still made money. You know, I don't know that it mattered left pocket, right pocket. The bottom line is, you know, we made some money. I'm not sure we can make that argument today, but you know, this time next year, I certainly hope that the answer would be different. You know, COVID, not.
Because, and yes, obviously, I think we're all hopeful about that, but I feel like the only way you're going to not spend money that you're not recovering is to literally lock it up, shut it down, not turn on the light, not to have, and because now, until people start renting it, or we come up with this better iteration of events where we sell tickets. I mean, unless I'm missing something, that's really the only way you're going to generate revenue.
Well,
right?
I don't think you could take the current virus as the norm, right? That will come and go. Then I think an operation of a conference center gets decided, but for. I mean, just like anybody else, if you're operating your restaurant today, you're not hitting your numbers, not because it's not a good restaurant. You're not hitting your numbers because it's insane out there. So whether you're in a hotel or whether you're in a restaurant, the world is upside down. So I don't think you can use that as a commercial. I think you say, we have a conference center, we've invested in it, we want to do more, we want to bring tourists here. And for the most part, those have always proven to be relatively profitable. You know, that's the next dollar. If somebody had to spend another dollar in the city, your hotel is the first place you'd want them to spend it, and your restaurant is the second place. You can spend another dollar at Walmart, and it means almost nothing to us. Right? But because of how the funding formulas are on those first two, that brings real value to us. And we just happen to be on an interstate, and we happen to have the ability. So I would say let's write it off, clean up the books, and then we've already seen the gentleman here twice. We'll ask good questions. You know, we're business people too. Right? So I think we can facilitate that, and I think we should.
Well, certainly, but I just encourage us to remember that the pandemic isn't over, obviously you know
Agreed.
this. So the time to start the measurement moving forward, we're not there yet.
Well, this one's just clean up your books
Yeah.
from an accounting
Right.
standpoint. And
Well, I
as
mean-
far as holding him accountable, I'm more worried about his pipeline today, right? What are we doing? How are we doing it? You know, are we reaching that conclusion? And as long as we feel comfortable that, you know, he's doing what he needs to do, then I think you do just like, you know, just like if you're running your hotel, while your managers are doing the best they can do, what can you say? I think you just have to have the experience to know the difference and to say, I believe you. I think you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm willing to stand behind it. And we should. Agree?
Yes, because, you know, in these times, I think just to, throw it out there, you know, it could be speculation because we don't know how things are gonna turn, you know, so I think to Sylvia's point, you know, now is not the time to start the clock on, you know, what's happening because as you know, there is a second wave in the queue right now starting up for.
Agree. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Agree.
But I will say, and Warren and I have talked about this, where, you know, he even mentioned it tonight, you know, you sort of are bound to accept cancellations. But we've got to put some sort of framework in place that you're just, you know, understanding now the situation. If you're booking something for a year out, because you booked during the pandemic, if the pandemic, and hopefully it will be over a year from now, that's not going to be the reason you get to cancel it. And that's going to be a discussion we need to have as a group now, because when we're in the middle of dealing with it, we should already be ready for it.
Well, most people have cancellation fees. There's a process for that. There's a.
Oh, yeah, sure. But, and that's just it. They'll fees, and depending on how close you get to. But because, say, if you are scheduled before the pandemic, it makes sense that we're gonna refund you with no fees during the middle of it. But that's not gonna be your sounding board for a year after. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and that's, again, I think if we all agree with that, I want to make sure Warren understands that, because that's what he's gonna be constantly looking for, is our guidance on what's allowed. And so, in terms of cancellations.
And if I may,
Go ahead.
speaking of the Old Town Morrow, we have nothing in place as far as fees and all of that, you know, rules and regulations for that. So wouldn't we have to come up with something, you know, before we allow?
We use a space before, yes,
Well,
is the answer.
Now,
There's
if you
some
mean
rules
the
and
Day of the
regulations.
Dead, remember that that's our event, so we
Right.
don't have to have rules for ourselves.
Well, I mean, as far as, what are we gonna be paying for? Because we had the building, this is not a building, so what is the city gonna pay for? Is the city gonna be responsible?
Well, we'd be responsible, we'd be helping facilitate the event just like we did last year.
And just like Christmas in the Park, you're paying for it because it's an event that the city is offering to the community. So,
But whether it's in the building or not,
right,
you were doing that.
again, no matter what it is, you know, but because this is what we have in the past identified as one of our signature events, if we were gonna do something different, but our expectation is, we're paying an organization to put on a cultural event because it's a city event. He's not paying us to do it, because he's not making any money. He's doing it, we're hiring him to perform a service.
But we have a certain amount, right? We have a ceiling on what we're gonna pay for that event.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah,
That's
sure,
what we
yeah.
had last year, whatever that was.
And it's in the budget, I think it's I wanna spit the number out, is it 20?
I believe
Yeah. Well, I like to check before I say, and it's just like the Freedom Fest, it roughly costs about $30,000 a year. 10,000 of which off the top is fireworks.
Well, you know, and I just wanna know if there's gonna be an addition, being outside, you know, tents and all of that thing, whereas in the building, we wouldn't have to provide that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now that becomes a part of the expense within the service. So again, if they were our tents and we were gonna keep them in storage and use them whenever we wanted to, but we're not paying over and above for extra stuff that he keeps in his company inventory. It just, he's expanding his inventory and it's part of the service that he gives us.
Yeah, I just wanted, you know, for it to be in writing for us, what we're gonna provide and, you know,
Fair enough.
what we're gonna,
Oh, and that's what he's
Because
talking
that-
about. The language of the contract needs to be adapted.
Right.
So yeah, you're gonna see that. It's not just like, go ahead, have the event, we'll see you there. Yeah, now we gotta get into the narrative, the discussions.
Okay. Any other questions? Just moving on real quick. The $100,000 awarded for the COVID-19, you want to talk about that, sir?
Sure, yes, thanks. So, it was a grant through the Clayton County HUD division, and I had actually asked for $125,000, and the premise was, as you'll see in your packet, is that we were gonna identify, it's a small business assistance grant, that we were gonna identify 50 businesses was inside the city and give them $2,500 a piece, so that they could use it to sanitize or build up their inventory or buy a new sign or spruce up their sign or anything along those lines that could help them in the post-pandemic economy. And so we were awarded $100,000, which means if we're going by the same formula of the application, we would now only get to choose 40 businesses. And we would have to create some criteria. When I say we, I mean the staff. But, so what we're asking for tonight is, basically you're acknowledging it and accepting the award, but you're allowing me the opportunity to fill out the forms that are associated. You'll see there's a non-compete clause in there. And at some point, there may be an agreement that the mayor has to sign, like a memorandum of understanding or some commitment to spending the money a certain way. And I'm asking that you go ahead and authorize him to execute any necessary documents, and for me to have the authority to fill out the forms that are required to complete the application. Because if you read the letter, you'll notice that it says do not give any money before you get your notice to proceed. And the documents in the packet are what I'm going to have to execute, and I shouldn't say that, I'm gonna have to fill out before they can send us the notice to proceed. I don't know that there's gonna be anything for you to sign. It doesn't look like it, but I'm always surprised when they say, okay, well, just get your mayor to sign this, and I'm like, well, my motion didn't include that, so I gotta wait for my next meeting. So really, we're just recommending to go ahead and authorize me to execute the rest of the application and for the mayor to sign any document should they emerge.
But it's a small business minded, I mean, any business minded, I guess, but everybody's hurting, so anytime we could, facilitate that a little bit, every little bit counts, right? Any questions? Come on. Go on.
You just keep it posted, right?
Ms. Knight, any questions?
You said we're going to use this to fund the businesses? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the point of the grant, actually.
Small businesses, yeah.
So are there guidelines with regard to who is eligible for these grants?
Well, we as a staff would identify, or however, the conflict agreement is suggesting to me that they aren't expecting elected officials to choose. But we can ask more about that if we need to. It would be just probably Marty and I, and maybe even Chief, the fire marshal and the police chief. Let's set up a sort of these are the 5 things you have to meet, because we have to you can't hold on to the money. I mean, we can't have part of the money this time next year. In fact, one of the things I think we got a large amount of money for, against what we asked, was because we are suggesting that once they give us the notice to proceed, we're gonna quickly identify the 40 and get them their money. It's just, there are more than 40 businesses in the city. And I guess what I'm asking is for the council to allow us to create the criteria, identify them, and get them their money.
Hopefully the ones that were harmed the most, if there's some way to figure that out.
Yeah,
right?
or,
So,
and
if
just,
you're
we
LA
have,
Fitness and you haven't had anybody in the building, you lost your shirt. If you're,
let's see, LA Fitness isn't gonna be
well,
a
it's
small.
not a small business, but let's just say it was.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's a fitness center across the street.
Yeah.
So they're closed and that's hurt their business. But if you're somebody else who didn't get hurt in the business, Walmart, and I know that's not but the bottom line, Walmart didn't get hurt. Walmart did pretty well. And I'm sure a grocery store may have done very well. But, it's something that just says that I would like to assume that the greater the impact, the greater the opportunity. So.
And of course, you all know, think about just on that corridor, oven treats, you got little spas and wouldn't be Beauty Masters because they're a national brand. I'm sorry, I don't mean Beauty, Sally Beauty in that strip. It's not gonna be GameStop, it's not gonna be, AT&T. It's gonna be the smaller, obviously, the small businesses, the one-stop shops that have been closed and we have to make sure they're going to reopen. I mean, because some of our businesses aren't going to reopen.
Oh, yeah,
And so-
they're not gonna be here. I mean,
Yeah.
that's already done. Okay.
If I may, if we,
So I would like,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Dorothy.
If we're going to give them the money, would they have to sign anything saying that they're gonna stay here, you know, for a certain length of time, or, you know, they just can't take the money and then close shop? Would we have to have something like that?
Well, of course, we don't set that parameter, the grant does, but
Okay.
now, having not looked, but in my many years of experience with grants, I'm gonna guess that is not part of the equation, that you bind them to stay. But I don't know that we could get into that. Not, you know, I'll be asking them.
But if you put the money towards something
Right.
that's, something you can touch, it's awful hard to spend
Well,
money
sure.
if you're not gonna stay, if you know, why would you repaint the facade of your building? I don't know. Go ahead, Renee.
I would like, the qualifications, the eligibility to be shared with council, as well as the businesses chosen, if that's going to be decided by city staff. Cause I'm curious as to know who would actually be eligible as a small business in the district.
Makes sense. Are we good? Okay. Going to the next item real quick, reimbursement for non-mandated fees associated with tax collection. That was one of the issues we were having early part of the year. A lot of those were mandated legal fees, title search fees, different things along those lines. We talked about it last time. That total came up to $66,334.63, and we want to be able to implement that and get it back to the right parties. Questions? Mr. Qual?
No questions.
Ms. Dolby? Ms. Knight, any questions?
No question.
All right. Last one is spending hiring freeze. Ideally, after the public hearing, assuming no comments, we pass a budget tonight, get ready to get into village rate sets and different things like that in the future. Right behind that, spending hiring freeze resolution. Basically, normally you pass your resolution on your budget, we implement, they basically have the ability to execute and carry it out. What we're saying is because the economy is a mess and we don't 100% know, we still want, you know, some pretty strong controls as we move forward. Any questions with that?
I agree. No question.
Ms. Knight? Ms. Knight, any questions?
I do have a couple of questions with regard to the budget. I know the discussion about the $3.3 million being written off previously. I don't know if I missed it because of my connection, but I understand what the goal is. However, I don't think anyone spoke to what those fees, what that total actually stems from.
How did they reach the conclusion on the 3.3 over the years?
Well, it wasn't really an over the years as much as when I first came on board, Malden and Jenkins actually said, hey, we need to talk to the council about this debt that continues to get written off. And at that point had been as many as, 9 years. And so the council met with Malden and Jenkins to discuss that the value of your assets no longer matches, in Malden and Jenkins' opinion, what you're claiming it is. So we need to reduce it to something that is in current time more in matching of its value of the assets. And so the financial advisor and the finance officer and the city attorneys actually, and the auditors, was sort of like, okay, what could we reasonably suggest your portfolio of assets is worth? And that's where they came up with that number. And so it was reduced from a higher number to that 3.6 million, with the understanding that, and sort of this was part of the whole bond refinancing decision, was that you could sell off your assets to make $3.6 million and pay it off. But you were never gonna get what it was recognized its value was, which I wanna say was in the $10 million range. So it was reduced about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And now, to your point is, it's not about the value of the asset, it's about you don't wanna sell it. So that money is never gonna come back to us even at that reduction to 3.6. So it's time to write it off and move on, because as you both discussed, we're not gonna get that money back. And the reason we're not gonna get it back now is because the DDA in most instances now doesn't even own it, so they're not gonna be able to pay it back.
Does that help, Renee?
It does, it's a lot clearer. Speaking about the origination of that $3.3 million number, rather than just, I'm gonna write it off. Understanding where that money came, where that number came from is helpful, transparent.
Okay. Any questions on the spending hiring freeze resolution? You good with that?
So you're saying spending hiring freeze with the exception of an economic development director?
Yeah, we'll pull those through as we hire them. Obviously, you'll do the interviews on them. And obviously, it doesn't include like normal operations. I mean, you have to pay your staff, you have to pay health insurance, you have to do other things. It's gonna be those other type of items that aren't gonna be traditional.
Well, aren't regularly frequent or traditional in your point, because remember, the hiring and spending freeze, the caveat is, you can't do it without my approval, and it's just a way to make sure we're all holding tight and being cautious. So I just want to clarify that the resolution does not read as if it's a hiring freeze and spending freeze, period. It's just, we need to do it
We're
through an
gonna pay the
approval
light
process.
bill,
Right.
and ultimately, if you lose an employee within the allocated number of employees you have, you will be able to replace them.
Right.
But you're not gonna be able to move beyond that. At least not without your approval.
Right.
Agreed? All right.
Ma'am, did you skip the confirmation of the public works director?
No, I'm sorry. And obviously, the Public Works Director has agreed to work for us, and we'd like to approve and give him a job. And any questions with that? I assume not. Tori, you good? Renee, you good?
Yes.
All right. Are we gonna be able to reach Ms. May? Play this one out. Anybody need a break before we go right into the council meeting? I'm staring at screens that I guess I'm not reading. My fault. Going right into item number 5 is Georgia Smart Communities Challenge discussion. Ms. Reddick?
Okay. So the county is applying for a grant with the Georgia Tech Institute of Technology. And this specific grant is geared toward connectivity of sidewalks and transportation, but specific to sidewalks. And they simply asked me to write a letter of support. There's no monetary values connected to it. We don't have any obligation under the grant should they win it. But for their grant application, if the cities, if Clayton County has support from her cities, we just get more points on the application. So I just wanted you guys to know that I had given them a letter and that they've submitted the grant. And I'm sure if they win it or lose it, they'll tell us either way. And it's something we've done in the past. We did it in 2019. So, but I just wanted you all to be aware of it.
Okay. Adamson Parkway discussion. We own a piece of property on Adamson Parkway. There was a discussion as to whether it had HOA fees. And years prior, it did. But those have since expired, and there's a legal opinion to that effect. And you want to talk about that, Sylvia?
I hope everybody knows by now, we own a piece of property at the end of Adamson Parkway. It's about 7 acres. And when we purchased it, during the purchasing of the property, we were made aware of an association, sort of like a homeowners, but for commercial properties. And our position was, of course, that we felt that honestly, are you kidding? Who has ever maintained that property in recent years? So we, at the time, as you know, we were with a ventures firm. We set out to sort of get a hold of all the documents that govern that association, and it turns out that it has expired. There's typically a 20-year time frame. Then you have to refile your declarations, all sorts of language I'm not terribly familiar with, but enough to sound not so smart. But it's expired. The collection of people that I can no longer refer to as association because there isn't one, nobody's interested in trying to start it back up, including us, because the cost of the association is disproportionate to the service we were getting, and we certainly, with our own public works department, could absorb that at a much lower rate. It's like $1,100 a quarter. So we will take over the maintenance of the medians in the middle when you drive down Adamson Parkway. Now we will have to determine, right now everybody's sort of taking care of their own stuff, except the medians in the middle, which we will maintain. But there will likely come a conversation in the coming months as to what the distance of our right-of-way is. I could certainly make an argument that that's a driveway and we don't have right-of-way on either side. But, you know, we'll be talking amongst ourselves and with our legal team as to, you know, what makes sense and how does the law define it. And law has all kinds of different definitions for what roads are and how they connect and what's a this and what's a that and what's a driveway. So if we can define it as a driveway, which may make some sense because it doesn't connect to anything, it's a dead end, then our right-of-way obligation is just going to be in the middle. And for anybody who's familiar enough with the road, it starts as 2 lanes on either side, but then it combines toward the end into only a 2-lane, which will affect the way it's defined and may actually help us in the idea that it's a driveway.
So the association will be all the other businesses on South Lake Parkway from Lee Street?
That would have been original.
It would have been, except for the cemetery was
Right.
never included.
Okay.
So
Days
we had
Inn.
Drury Inn, Days Inn, the strip center at the end, the Summit, the old Social Security building,
yeah.
all those would have
Okay.
been
And that-
part of it. Now, another piece of the conversation is, for all these people who belong to this association, they're asking, well, why aren't we gonna get our money back? You know, we've been paying you all these quarters, and you're basically saying it's been gone for all these months. And I just told them that's not my argument to make. You know, I'm just saying we felt like it was expired and we're right. And so anything beyond that, you know, I would need guidance from the council on how much we're gonna get involved in that conversation.
The one thing we gotta look at is if they consider it to be some type of private property, a driveway. Normally when a road is deeded to the city, that's where you get to know what you have. And the reason they'll want to get it to the city is at some point it's gonna need to be repaid. You're not gonna be able to repave it if it's not yours, right? And before the place falls apart, it'd be a good idea to know what that answer is. So that way we can put it on our list of streets. And then that by default will determine the right of ways. So you have the street itself, the pavement, the curb, the sidewalk. At some point, there's a right of way, if that's out there. Normally that is deeded to you, just like every residential subdivision is as well. That might be a little more complicated.
Yeah,
because
well,
somebody's
it's
gotta
definitely,
figure out how to do it.
because within that, like, the middle section of that road, like I say, it changes. So if it's 40 feet from the middle line, yay, because we probably don't even make it 40 feet from the median, because it's 2 lanes already.
Right.
But, so it may be 2 different sections of right-of-way on the same piece of road. So, but yeah, that's a good point. So do I hear you saying that with our attorneys, you want me to pursue the whole answer?
Well, I think at some point we're gonna have to have that anyway.
Okay.
And he's already done enough research to figure out what's not in it. Let's figure out, I mean, even the road itself, if it was not a public entity, that would still be defined, I'm sure, because there's true private property, and then there's some other entity's property. There had to be something in those documents that would talk about how you would get rid of the property that the HOA owned.
Yes, because not only the road itself, but they own a little piece of land, because there used to be a sign there that said the Summit, you remember?
Right.
So the association is the owner of a little piece, tiny little piece of land. And so that's another issue that
But
has
you
to
would
be
think
resolved.
everybody that's over there would want you to have some type of marker so that you can figure out how to get to their place of business.
Well, again, and this is when we discovered there was an association. Their answer to leaving the sign in better repair was just to remove it. I mean, like, it could have easily been a paint job, but they just took it out because they didn't wanna maintain it, so.
But let's at least do that. Because
Okay.
we'll be, I mean, at some point, you'll have a road that is in very bad repair, and they will certainly be looking to us to fix your streets. Something as simple as a pothole doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you don't own it, you know, that would be the wrong time.
But how, I mean, and so, and I don't know that you know the answer, I'm just asking this rhetorically. You know, it's like if the association's already dissolved, who even has the authority to give it to you?
Very good question. But if you own a piece of property and you're not a nonprofit, somebody's paying a tax on it, and if you're not paying a tax on it, then it's already available now for sale at the courthouse steps. Usually that would get deeded over to us.
Which would be why the church, the cemetery wasn't put in. Okay.
That would be just the tax commissioner asking if there's a spare parcel out there. It may already be that way. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, we called the tax office on this issue, but it doesn't open until the middle of July.
All right, any questions on the, on that particular property? Ms. Knight, any questions?
No question.
All right, Dorothy, you good? Okay. Item 7 is Al Almer property, 1204 Morrow Road, basically the corner of Phillips Drive and Morrow Road. Was formerly an Amoco station. They pulled out the tanks out of the ground. It has sat there for a number of years. Important to know, if you're looking at the picture, and you see the little dot on there, this property does not have public sewer. The closest public sewer is available is if you look at the adjacent church property and you went to the far right-hand corner and then went midway up into the field, that is about where the Clayton County's sewer line is at. So the issue with this property has always been that, you know, you can't just use a septic tank on today's commercial property. So they would have to negotiate with the property next door to be able to even get the sewer line, to be able to do a commercial development. Yeah. Then the next part, of course, is the city of Morrow has in its long-term plan, not only comprehensive plan, but ultimately the planning section, certain requirements for the development of that. And that's really what the question is. And you know, once she explains it to you a little bit, what my advice would be is that we don't formally change zonings or anything along those lines, but we verbally, you know, say we have an interest. And that interest would be, you know, bring us some type of development there that's, you know, makes some sense versus an individual who just wants to dish his property off to somebody else. And to say, you know, what the city's got for its long-term goal there is probably would have been good 15 years ago. It probably wasn't realistic today. So an example would be the BP station up here would have had a similar challenge years ago, you know, 3-story developments, different things like that, high density. And that just wasn't really in the cards. And there was a negotiation that said, you know, we'll accept a modified BP station that looks pretty good. And I think that was a good call, right? And the guy over there has been successful with it, and we got a better product. So that being said, Sylvia.
Yes, so to the mayor's point, and I've talked to probably everybody but Councilman Boone, I apologize. He's like, nice. But so here you have a gentleman who's owned a piece of property for a long time, and he wants to explore the opportunity to develop it. Yes, there are challenges with the sewer, with parking, with, you know, curb cuts, however that works out. But he wants to know what the possibilities are. So when he originally called, he felt that he wanted some assurances that we were not going to hold him to the current zoning, which, by the way, requires a 3-story mixed use, right? So as I explained to him, is that I can't give him those assurances. We have a planning and zoning board and a mayor and council, but I told him that I would speak to the mayor and council just to see sort of, is anybody truly opposed to him exploring options that do not require a 3-story structure. Now, it's always about the chicken and the egg, and you know, he wants us to give him some sort of assurance before he spends any money, and I say, You gotta at least produce a drawing before anybody's gonna give you a real answer. However, I think I could, easily have a conversation with the mayor and council and just take their temperature. And so what all really we're asking you to say out loud tonight is, if he brought you a drawing that made some sense, that he could work out through the challenges, do you feel that you would support the planning and zoning board's direction to build something reasonable, that's a good quality, but might not necessarily be a 3-story mixed-use building?
And one thing I'd like to throw out there just for the history books, because I bet you no one remembers it, is the little daycare center across the street already has approval from the city council for a single-story building. And the whole drawing has been basically approved by the city council specifically. Now, that being said, it was never built.
Under the neighborhood business on it?
Yeah. And what he was supposed to do is it was a layout. It pushed it closer to the curb than we're normally accustomed to, right? But it was nice. It was hardscaped out and different things along those lines. So that was part of his trade. And it was, instead of just saying you have that zoning ability, we specifically approved that plan. You can't veer from that plan. We'll say yes to this. And there was lots of hardscape type of items that went with it, but the demand up in that corner is not exactly phenomenal. But the idea was if we trade, we want something to trade for something nice. But they never built that building. And when you get into 3-story structures, you always have to remember the fire department seems to have a couple issues with people living upstairs and people burning up. Don't know what that is exactly, but it makes it very cost prohibitive, especially if you say I want a restaurant below. And for those people who have restaurants in Atlanta where you have residential above you, it almost requires a concrete structure at that point. And then it becomes not only cost prohibitive, but that particular lot just wouldn't support it on a bet. And then just forcing our hand doesn't even make any sense. So you would default back to, in my opinion, what happened on the other side. And ultimately that guy did sell that property, by the way. He sold it and they've used it as it is. They haven't modified it. But it doesn't mean if he didn't, he could still follow his original plan, which we should have here somewhere. And if we could use that as a prototype, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it was nice. And probably more expensive than anybody would want to build. But,
I think we probably know where those drawings are.
But it'd be worth showing the city council what, in other words, if we're just saying it has to be 3 floors, there already has been a trade made towards something that we thought made sense. And it may be worth looking at again to see whether that still holds up to be true.
But now, the drawing on that opposite corner would have already been on sewer, not?
Yes, it is. Yeah, this guy has extra special accounts. That has nothing to do with us, though.
True.
It doesn't. If you're gonna build it, you've got to figure out how to get it sewer, just like you have to get power and other types of things there. And I'm sure he could negotiate it, or we could work to negotiate it on his behalf. And there might be some cross easement parking that could be determined, and almost should be, because if the guy's gonna build it and not be able to use the next door neighbor's asphalt and a lot of it, that might help the church, right? Having some type of use during the week that might help pay their bills. And there's no reason for us to have just a complete sea of asphalt, because we're gonna want some landscaping up there. So, the idea is, come up with a trade that makes sense. I don't think this guy's gonna build it, but I think that would be where you say, really, really consider, if it's gonna work, and whether that's Benny Chin Shopping Center, Armin Estrop Shopping Center, and a few others, you have to kind of look at what has been successful in the past, outside of just a vision that never gets economically built, and to say it's doable. And he still may not like that, but remember, he's gonna sell it anyway. So someone else coming in, it's probably gonna be a small little strip shopping center more than likely. But I think it would, if he wants the trade, I think it could be done well. But I think you really do have to look at that other.
If he's thinking of selling it, well, if things go the way he hopes, I think he's only gonna sell it after he puts a building on it, because he thinks he can get a heck of a lot more money for it. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think he wants to make the investment of the building to ensure a better sale.
I know what he's got in the land, it's entirely possible. he doesn't have a whole lot in the property. And, you know, getting the sewer over there, if you're, I mean, he grew up in the area, so I don't think it would be complicated to have a couple of discussions. Old school, right? Do you mind if I, you know, put a trench across your yard? Yeah, I think a reasonable person could do that.
Do we know from it being having been a gas station, whether the underground storage tanks have been removed?
Yeah, they were. As part of the requirement back in the day, you had a choice of, to not hold the liability for the ground contamination on the metal tanks. You had to take them out, right? And there's no question, those tanks were taken out.
So the soil and all of that,
Well, the
was it
soil
tested?
is probably got some contamination to
Yeah.
it, but if on the sale of the property, you sign that, the way the state of Georgia was, instead of having these abandoned blighted areas, you could sign a statement with them and avoid the liability with it. Yeah. So that just means you can get it developed and.
Well, I don't think the grass would grow that fast if there was.
No, but it's ground contamination at the water tank. That's
Right,
really
if
where it's
they're
at.
gonna go down
There's no
there.
remediation site on that one, it never has been. Right. So
Because
we
it was
closed.
disturbed.
Yeah, we
That's
closed
what-
this one. The guy that's right across there, that's got the little, right beside Neighborhood Grocery, the little Amico place or whatever's over here, the car guy. What's his name? The garage.
At that corner?
No.
No, oh, okay, the Action Auto?
Action Auto.
Okay.
Action Auto pulled his tanks out of the ground at the same time. So he didn't have tanks in there anymore. And then, of course, we did ours at the tourist center. The Shell station across the street, those tanks have been pulled out. That one's ground contaminated, no remediation. Ours was ground contaminated. We did have remediation. I think that's the only ones we had to see.
So do we have water at the park across the street? Is there water, you know, like any public water fountain or anything like that at that park, you know?
That's a really good question. I don't think so.
On Skylark.
Yeah, I don't think there's a.
At Christian?
Yeah.
Who?
Isn't that the name of the park?
Yeah,
I'm just
Skylark.
trying to see, I don't even know that there's a spigot out there. What, you just curious?
The only one I know is the
Does
one
anybody
right here
know?
at the city, right? Is it the one, just the one out here? Is the only one that I've seen that has a water fountain in it?
Oh,
That's
well,
still here.
And then, of course, we have water at Reynolds Road because of the dog park.
Different thing. I don't think it does.
Yeah, I don't think it does either.
Is there a reason? Did you want water there?
No, just that, you know, it's a playground area and if, you know,
Oh, ground contamination?
contamination from one location to another,
You
it's
wouldn't get
possible.
that. In the event he had to dig something out, he would have to send that soil to a specific site, and then they would truck in clean soil
Right.
to make that not only part of his civil engineering.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not the arm that regulates that.
That's true, but to,
I think at the station, I thought historically, if you're familiar with the Atlantic Station, a lot of the residents and just kind of what's called, I didn't down at Atlantic Station when I was in there, I thought.
yeah, they paved over most of that. Any thoughts on it? Anyone opposed to at least hearing it out? Okay, good.
Well, I did want to make the comment, on previous councils, we did talk about pocket zoning, which a site like this would be conducive to something that suits the neighborhood, something that may be walkable, a little bit more sustainable with regard to being centered in the neighborhood. We did have conversations previously, so we would need to see drawings or some sort of concept, what it is that he thinks will be a successful, viable building for that spot.
Yeah, and let's just, for the next council meeting, let's just grab a set of drawings from across the street. And at least
I've already made enough.
so you can see what, yeah, and maybe we change it, maybe we don't, but it's worth taking a peek. I agree. Any other questions? All right, item number 8, Finance Committee appointment. There were some questions as to how and should we and that kind of stuff. And you have since received an auditor's opinion as well as a legal opinion. And the only change that I would make is if the argument's gonna be there should be 2 people on the committee, my standing rule would be I would appoint myself to the committee as well as to any committee we make. So that would be me and Van, and we'd still work our way through it. So that meets the requirements. It may not make everybody happy, but at least legally and auditor-wise, it's doable. And I wouldn't anticipate that being the only committee. I don't know why that one creates such concern. But I could say the same thing on a beautification committee. There's more than enough for this city to do where we don't have to tread all over each other. Other cities do this type of stuff. But, yeah. Any comments?
My concern,
I don't think the issue is, but it might just, the concern isn't necessarily the conference committee being formed. And will be done to the conference committee, bringing this idea to the council and it being only one person, any impact would be to that. Especially with how communication and information is being shared, that it's missing. And so having one person on the committee with more information, that's the problem. I think for me, for you, but there shouldn't be specific access to the finance system for
You're breaking up a little bit, Ms.
G,
I'm just-
is that all from her end?
That's her connection.
Yeah. But we're hearing about every third word.
I'll start, or can you hear me now?
No.
I'll ask her to call in with her phone
Yes, exactly.
instead of
Can you call
computer.
Jasmine?
We're gonna try a different connection for you.
Hello? Yes, can you
Can
hear
you
me?
hear me?
Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. So, I'll start over. The concern wasn't the formation of a finance committee. It was bringing it to the council with only one person appointed to that committee. Oversight, functionality, what the purpose is, none of that was provided to the council. We have a problem, in my opinion, with information being shared equitably. So that brings an instant red flag for me and a concern. With regard to the scope of what the committee is going to be doing, the opinions were that it should be advisory and any information should be brought to the council. I understand that, but again, information being requested by council members that's provided to staff, we understand that we have that access, but we don't want to tread waters where we are interfering with day-to-day operations. Finance committee should certainly not have access to the finance systems where they are able to dig, possibly change things. That wouldn't be appropriate.
No,
The inquiries
and I don't think they're going to.
and detailed information, and so, but none of that was discussed. None of the scope of what the finance committee is going to do was explained. You've got to understand that we want to make sure that information is shared among all council members so that we all have the best information and not just an interpretation of one person.
And it wouldn't be. Whenever you've had as many challenges financially as this city has had in recent memory, it is a really good idea to have another set of eyes, right? We're not trying to change anything. There's, you know, or wanting access with the inadvertent ability to change anything. But when you have people who have skill, and they certainly, you know, can look at something just as well as anybody else. I mean, if you can read a financial statement, you can read a financial statement. You know, so, you know, try not to blow that out of proportion. and it's not somebody that is, you know, if information's coming back, it's gonna be more in the form of a question or a what if. I think that can be handled pretty well. But let's let it go for just a second, and, you know, if it gets in the way, let's ask what those questions are. You know, and obviously, it doesn't appear that we've had a committee in a while. So you go, okay, this is one. It's a good one. We'll have others. And I'm sure whatever the issues with this one is, somebody else have similar questions on the next one. Good question. And we'll work on it from there. But so far, we have the ability to do it. I think we should do it. And from a standpoint of having a little more confidence in our own abilities, you know, that's what we do. It is oversight, and it's not oversight like somebody's looking after the finance department. It's the fact that, you know, part of our job is to basically, you know, do that. And more than just the financial aspect. We don't do it as, you know, some people, they're given the fire department, some people are given the police department. I'm not sure that's necessary. But for now, you know, let's see what happens.
And so, again, sharing information equitably across the council so that we understand and we have the best information, that is the point that I'm making. I understand committees can be formed. I think you're missing the point of what I'm saying. We just want to make sure that all the council members have the information so that we can all benefit while we have one vote for each council member.
I agree, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Because I don't have a specific part in my head where I could sit there and go, look, if I read a spreadsheet, that's not the same thing. It's only when you reach a conclusion on something or you ask a question, you know, they can forward you the emails, or if that's necessary. So I don't know.
And if the council, I would like to say something, because when you all discuss sharing information, y'all don't meet amongst yourselves, you meet the staff. So I'm gonna say that if Dorothy comes by one day and we're talking, because she came up to pick up her packet, and I was like, oh, guess I just got off the phone, and then all of a sudden I forgot to tell everybody else. I mean, I have some real concern if we're sort of talking about any time I have a conversation with any council member or anybody on my staff, that I have a responsive obligation to make sure every single body knows about it. I don't recommend that. I think it's an unrealistic expectation. And so I would like to understand more about what the council's practicing policy will be, because I don't want to get caught up later when it again, oh, well, you didn't tell me that, we told her that. I mean, that will be an impossible thing to keep up with. So if it's
to the finance committee.
But again,
The finance committee.
but I apologize, because I thought you were talking about the equitable sharing of information under any circumstance, be it finance committee or otherwise. But if I email anything to a council person, well, that part's easy. To your point, Mayor and Councilwoman Knight, we can always, anything we email goes to everybody, because I was already putting it in an email. But I just want to be careful about the conversation that everything we share, we have to share with everybody, because I fear the accidental mistake, which will happen fairly regularly, because we're interacting with council all the time. So if the commitment is anything that's sent in an email to one council member should be sent to every council member, understanding that the mayor is different than a council member, you know, certainly we're going to do what you tell us to. I just worry about when we talk about every little thing we share has to be shared with everybody. That worries me. And I would like to hear from Angela on this, if you feel differently than that. Like, do you feel like, would that be worrisome to you if you had to share, I mean, other than what you're putting in an email? Do you get concerned about if our commitment is everything you share with any council member, you share with every council member? Does that?
First, I guess I don't deal with council members that much, at least not here anyway.
But you will with the finance committee?
Well, with the finance committee, my experience with the finance committee is that they have pre-scheduled meetings like usually once a month or something like that. It's not something where you're interacting, you shouldn't be dealing with them every day or something like that. You know, and it is just something where I guess, I don't know, if they wanna, they have agendas, they have regular agendas or topics they wanna talk about or research or something like that, they may want us to do and bring back to the committee, and again, like,
No, so then to your point, maybe everybody just goes through me and then I'll delegate it.
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're overthinking it.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the weeds real fast.
Yeah, and I guess that's really sort of my concern.
Well, because just putting all of that together is worth more than the peak. Does that make sense? Try not to overthink it, because I just can't.
If I may.
Just can't imagine.
If a concern, to put concerns to rest, if the representatives of the committee are meeting with, as she said, you know, how often are you gonna meet with the finance department? How often are you gonna need access to information? Some of that would be a good thing if it's in writing. What's the purpose of the committee and the function of the committee? What will you be, you know, so that we'll know what you're doing. You know, and the rest of the council will know what the committee is
Yeah,
there for.
What I hear is, and I don't know what y'all's experience of this is, but you guys have obviously not had an interesting citizen come and ask you for open records request before. I think it would blow your mind as to just how invasive they can be and just how annoying they can be just for sheer fun. And they're legally entitled to it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but this is new.
I understand.
It's
But I'm
something
just
that,
saying
it's
is
something that wasn't shared
there's
from the inception of
There's
it.
nothing that's not already publicly available.
I understand, I understand.
You're not even doing the math. It's not like somebody saying 2 + 2 = 4. That requires a computation. This is nothing more than reading an existing document. It has
I
to exist
understand.
to be able to do it.
I think what Councilwoman Knight was referring to was that if there's something that's gonna come about that's totally new to the council,
Well, I would hope so, because, I mean, they're not
shoot
gonna
an
be able to do
email,
anything
you
by
know,
themselves.
what do you think about this? You know, I'm thinking about forming this committee, what's your thoughts? You know, to the other council, all the council members. Would be nice
I understand.
to be in the picture, you know, before it's on the agenda. I think that, you know, go a long distance.
Okay. I just view work session agendas different. And the idea is, I mean, that's where you put it. And that's the document that something starts with, even if it's just an idea. But an idea still has to have some type of wings before it gets there. But I get it. Like I said, let's just try not to overthink this. And I'll pay a little attention to making
Okay,
sure.
you put a lot of thought to it as well, so, I mean, to say not to overthink it on
Right,
our
but
part
my entire
wouldn't be fair.
purpose is,
Right.
I don't like financial surprises.
I don't think anybody does.
I know, but if you spend a little time on it, just because I can read a statement doesn't mean I'm gonna do it. So if I've got someone who has, that as a hobby, however you wanna call it, or an interest, or a skill, it'll be a whole lot faster for them. And they can't do anything by themselves, you know, so you look at it and say, you know, just like yours, you bring something forward when you see something, but just spotting something that might be odd to you doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
That's the questions you ask other people, and you might get better answers, in which case now everybody understands a little better. But I get it, so we'll adjust. We're gonna be running out of time here. All right, on number 9, dealing with the current budget, revenue and expenditure results anticipated. I still worry a lot about, you know, different things in terms of not only how the millage was set last year, how the millage is gonna be set this coming year. And I'd really like somebody, Ms. Angela, to lay that out for me, is because I still think at some point, we know that local option sales tax rollback is not going to be as big as it could be.
Correct.
If it's not there, you know, I wanna see, you know, in a print. I think it's important for those who don't do this every day, to make sure your math on paper adds up to what we think it does in our head. Because anytime there's a loss, somebody's gotta pay. And we just wanna make sure what we're writing is we know what that is, you know? Invariably, if the local option sales tax number is less than it was, then that rollback has to be less, which means the amount of money you're paying out of your pocket as a house owner or a business owner has to be more, has to be. How is that written in the document that we have to publish in the newspaper? Very important to us. And then what is the expectation when you tell someone we're not increasing your taxes, but he could walk in here in a year and say, I paid $100 last year and I'm paying $120 this year. And they're pretty sure they're gonna be able to say 120 is more than 100.
Right.
You know, and that's true. But I think all the documents will support, you know, what I'm saying.
Correct.
But I want to have somebody see that so that we can explain it to our citizens. This is real. It's not funny math, right? So that's that. And we haven't had, you know, major changes since the last time we talked about, you know, nothing magical has happened in terms of our collection numbers.
No, not unfortunately, no, we're still down, yes.
And I know in the budget, or not in the budget, but with the $3 million offset, and we had a number of things along those lines, but those are accounting mechanisms. You know, what I'm looking for is you know, loss of cash in a bank, you know, from this year to last year. We know the numbers are gonna be tragic no matter what we do. But because there was some changes after the first of the year in terms of tightening, you know, we know we had to absorb the local option sales tax reduction for this year out of our budget, right? 'Cause
Correct.
we planned it, we set it, and the only person that had to pay the difference was us. Okay?
Correct.
And you add that up to business license revenue drop, hotel motel tax drop, everything else. I just want to make sure we talked about 1.2 million, give or take. Once it's all washed out, are we still gonna eke out just a little positive number?
Maybe if this is very teeny tiny,
Right,
yeah.
but we're not gonna be sitting here with a, you know, I don't wanna see a loss of $300,000 to $500,000. Not that we can do anything about it.
Right.
But it's just, I'd rather stay with the positive side that said we did good things, and thank goodness we did, versus we did good things, and you're still about to take a huge
Right, and
bath.
hopefully we're gonna have, like I said, the revenue, the expenditure numbers that I have in there, it includes the next payroll that we have, which is gonna hit, where we're gonna process it on Thursday, but it'll hit on the 30th. And everything's already included that estimate in that's a part of that, if you, like you said, exclude the 3.3 million is part of that $258,000, I would say, loss out right now, but again, we have revenues that are still coming in too, so, you know. And I think that expenditure for payroll is the largest expenditure that I'm aware of anyway, so.
And then court, we know the court's really.
Yeah,
just not
court,
gonna
yeah,
be
court,
on
you can make up, get a lot of money out of that, if we can, yeah, 2 weeks of,
And it-
yeah, 2 days of that for
Ms.
weeks,
Hesse,
2
when's
weeks.
the first, when does Judge Brent get to smack the gavel around? I mean, we still not talking mid-July?
Oh, we
We already started, yeah.
Oh, good, the money's rolling in.
Yeah.
At least, and we contributed to that. My mother-in-law was in an accident, said, we've been happy to pay the city of Morrow a little finder's fee.
Our first session was a little challenging, and we were working on some issues with that because it was a trial day. But the rest of them, the arraignment days have gone like clockwork.
And does the repeater work? And-
Oh, yeah. I went out and sat and listened to the judge myself, just so I could know it was working.
Wow. How far away did you have to sit? Could you
Dude, I was just right.
sit over at the Dairy Queen and tune
But
in?
and, you know, one of the.
Bob wants to listen to the radio at his house. I just want to know how far it goes.
You probably could pick the judge up at your restaurant on a clear day, I'm not kidding. But, you know, the expectation, we were not prepared for how many people were gonna show up without, I mean, we knew there were gonna be some that didn't have a car, whose car didn't have a radio, those kinds of things. So but we're gonna adjust to that. We're gonna start not making sure the community room is available to extend that space, so, with a radio set up inside, because, that seemed to be a problem. Of course, everybody wanted us to start using their cell phone. I was like, well, how are we gonna get that from you? You know, like but after that first day, like as he said, it's super cool. I mean, like all of a sudden it's like this really cool thing we're doing where people can sit in their car and listen for the judge.
Well, and that's a good point. Is there an app where you can turn your iPhone into a radio and tune it in?
Oh man, that's a great question.
think so,
Are you
right?
saying no?
There is an app, but the reason is the.
Oh, they won't pick up the frequency?
Because we are not registered with whoever
Oh,
pick up.
okay.
We are not
Yeah.
long range.
Ah,
So that's why it cannot be converted over to the digital app.
FCC.
Well,
That's
that
what
was
the
the
show-
wrong answer to the right question.
all right.
Yeah, so it's cool.
Somebody, well, I mean, yeah, I agree, that's probably a stretch, but an interesting idea.
What are the hours? Is it still the same?
Well, the number of, the hours are set by how many people show up and how long it takes. But we are trying 50 people per session. Essie, have you and the judge talked about when, or is that time to talk about expanding that calendar?
No, we haven't, not this time, because like I said, we've only had 4, so we're seeing what challenges we have, and the only one was trial. And I will say this, someone was at Wendy's and said they heard.
Yeah.
All right.
On the radio.
So they could go for a lunch break and still listen. That's good. That's good. Spend some money while you're here. Some more money.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it worked. That's nice. The other items, we've already had discussion, business license revenue, GDA write-off. In terms of getting, that $66,000 back out to the 85 people, do we have an approximate timeframe for that?
No. It's right now, like I said, this week has been dealing with HR stuff and getting open enrollment and stuff done, at least by the finance people. The 6 people, I mean, those people, was it 80-something people that have to be entered into payables? I mean, this is year end for us, June 30th.
Right, that's all.
And I told Sylvia, every time I look at something in that financial system, I find some other significant problem or something that's wrong. And even today, I was like, that software, I'm talking to the software people, that thing has gotta go. It's all manual. It's truly manual. You've got to roll it forward. So after June 30th, come July 1, if you're looking at the balance sheet numbers, they're not gonna be right going forward, unless I keep rolling them forward. And you're not gonna roll that thing forward every day. And what I'm finding is like, the stuff was rolled forward at different times last year, different account numbers. And I'm thinking, oh goodness, I hope all of it was done at once, and whether it was right or not, because if you look at a beginning balance, like we were looking at I think something in hotel motel, and the beginning balance of an account said it was $615,000. I'm like, Tom, no. I said, it's not. The audit report said it's $396,000. That's not the beginning balance in that number. And then you look see if there was a roll forward during the year to try to make the balance correct. There was one like months later, but it was $90-something thousand. It still didn't fix the balance. So you got balances that aren't even right now and stuff in there. So I got that challenge. The thing is, I've got to close that thing out on the 30th, or else you won't be able to do anything on the 1st. So I'm gonna try to find and fix as much as I can or whatever. But we got payroll to process on Thursday. We still got to get all the insurance, because the insurance was done later or whatever, and approved later, and the open enrollment dates got pushed back or whatever, because the insurance company was trying to get things set up, and then they wanted to do that stuff virtual. So we got to get everybody enrolled in insurance or whatever, so people have insurance come July 1. But what I'm going to do with this, again, since I've got like a detailed list of who the people are, and I can consider it a real liability, and you got them out, you got them voted, I'm gonna go ahead and record it as a liability and an expense. And then so that way, as soon as possible, we can start processing, as she processes payables because we process payables on a weekly basis anyway, to start adding those to it, and she can get to as many as she can. And maybe we can at least try to get everything knocked out before the end of July. But then there may be some challenges with hopefully the people that, we're talking about, some of the people that may have paid, weren't the people that, you may have had some mortgage companies or something like that pay for people.
The owner versus the payer.
Yeah, that kind of crazy stuff,
But
yeah.
we did have some further conversation that may, if somebody owned the property, they're likely to pay that or sent that expense to the tenant anyway. So it may not be something we need to worry about, but that is something we're gonna have to examine the list.
Figure out, yeah, because you don't want to be cutting checks and then they end up coming back to us and just, who knows, or floating out there and don't ever clear.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll get it knocked
And then,
out.
Going forward on item 10, exactly what I was talking about just a minute ago, the future millage rate set, manage so that we're not, you know, you gotta set the millage, you know, and the county's gonna set the digest, and then we'll set it from there.
All right.
So, and I realize that'll be after, but it won't be tremendously amount after. I just want I just want something on a piece of paper that gives me the what ifs, you know, and then we know what we'd be publishing in the newspaper. I want to make sure it reads like I think it's supposed to read, and I don't want to read tax increase, thank you, City of Morrow, because I don't think that's true. And I think that it's written differently. And could be wrong, but we'll see that. We talked a little bit earlier about the 401A employer matching. We realized we got some challenges there. Again, you'll have to have a resolution passed.
Yes, and I do, this is where I want to expand on it, that I'm not really sure why they're telling us it's gonna take 3 weeks to get it. And I don't know if it's because of the way people are working remotely or people's on vacation, I don't know. But once you pass the resolution, which we will get mid-July, it is 60 days beyond that. 60 or 90?
60.
60. You cannot enact the action until 60 days later, which takes us into like the first pay period of
60
September.
days after the first payroll or something.
Yeah,
with payroll.
there's some nuance about it.
Yeah.
It will take us into September. The value of that is about $7,400. But just
So that'll
FYI.
probably be your first budget.
And that-
At least that's going to your citizens, or not your citizens,
Your
your
staff,
employees, so you're
yeah.
not leaving it. You know, but the irony when that was set up is, it wasn't designed to be complicated. It was designed to really just say, this is a bonus because we're doing good things in good times. It gives you a different ability. And, you know, just like if you did education incentives and things like that, during good times you can do that. Bad times you have to tighten up and just say no. But anyway, we'll see that as it comes forward.
And so
Sure.
I would like to make sure we're clear, because resolutions, we write those all the time, right? But this requires the template resolution from GMA, so we can't draft our own.
So not a problem. All right, and probably won't go too much into this just simply because, you know, this van's out and all we'd end up doing is repeating it anyway. You have, as you start to now get into, so you say, let's assume we got our budget finished. Angela and them now are gonna eventually figure out how to set the millage, close out the books, and whatever that's gonna entail. So last year's pretty much over, as we would know it, because we're not gonna meet again between now and the end of the year anyway, or end of the fiscal year. So then everything we see coming forward, you now start to talk about, you know, the next scope of stuff, and that is, irrespective of how your budget is laid out, you now have people, right? And you wanna look at your staffing in every department, hierarchical, you know, who's the boss? Who are the, you know, the second in command, how are they doing that? The number, the sheer number that they are, the skills and experiences that they have, you know, the duties and responsibilities in today's environment, right? So, you know, we still see a reasonable amount of, you know, positions where we have a lot of titles, but we don't have a lot of people who don't have them, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, how many managers do you need to manage, you know, a smaller number of people? And when you start to see that hierarchical chart and everybody's on top of each other, that's a lot of managers versus real people, you know, versus the theory that one person's supposed to be able to manage 7 people. You know, that's traditional, that's a business school right out of the deal. So once you get to 7, I have a manager. 7 of those, I have a manager. Well, we don't have that many people working for us. So we've got a lot of titles, you know, and usually with those titles comes some type of incentive, pay, however. And certainly I would say there has to be some type of criteria for you to have that position. You know, whether that means you have it or you don't is a good question. But each one of those does have a salary schedule, and they usually have some type of criteria to get that job, and then years of experience. So you will have seen some sections of that was given to you. Lots of data here. So there would be duties and responsibilities, organizational charts. I would certainly recommend that you read those. Personnel evaluations. I think all of those are inclusive, right? And I read the vast majority of them today. You know, there's some questions on that, but for now. But pay attention a little bit to the number of people, right? Because that should back into your budget number. And that would be the question. Is the chart that I saw relevant to now, Or is it relevant to what we have,
The main org chart?
the ones I was given?
Right, so the one that shows everybody and not in individual
No, I think the
departments?
individual sections there and at the bottom, it's got like July 1, 2020. So,
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna clarify, like that, some of those, like the fire department and police department built their own, but we've built those this week so that they were current. So if there's something you disagree with in terms of a dotted line, which is referencing an old funny conversation, but, you know, if you feel like, you remember how today we talked about where the org chart shouldn't have one person over it physically on the chart unless they're actually over it really.
That's correct.
You know,
Another-
so if
you're
they're not
managing-
supervising it, make it easy to read, and so that might be, you know, something that we're gonna have to go in and adjust, and that's the kind of feedback we need to hear is that, so when you're looking at it, if there's one supervisor and they're supervising 3 people, and none of those 3 people are over each other, then they should all be laid out in a straight line.
Agreed.
Instead of trying to strategically place them for X, Y, and Z reason, so, and we can make those adjustments accordingly. But I should ask you, Mayor, because it didn't occur to me, I have not uploaded all the job descriptions. Do you want those as well in that resource on that Dropbox?
Might as well, just
Okay.
because if somebody has a question to it, there might be a little harder to do with police and fire, but I want to focus a little bit on economic development. We know that's a position that will be open, and we want to make sure that, you know, it's inclusive, you know, and that'll probably, you know, I think your chart already it includes it. You know, there's a chart in there, and I think it lays it out. But I can't say I spent an enormous amount of time on it.
And so my next question is, the grants administrator position is not recognized on the chart. Do
Right.
you want me to include it?
That's a good discussion point, because there will be and we're already at the point, right? The point is I can't afford all of those positions as much as I want them. I just can't do it. You know, so that the person responsible for that might be identified within the current group that's there, as much as you might want to say, you know, it's just, you know, I don't know how to say it, but I want it so that you can see that it exists. I just don't know who's going to be responsible for the
Well, I
duties
mean,
of it.
you could capture it on the list of responsibilities or the job description, but insofar as an at-a-glance on the org chart, it would have to be a title share,
Probably.
and, you know.
Who gets the title, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've proven again and again, the more we focus on it, that money does come, and from that good thing. So, and certainly more than it costs us for a grant administrator. But on the front side, I think we gotta take the piece that we can get and then decide what we're gonna do. And I think that's a council discussion.
And I'd also like to say one more thing, and I certainly don't mean to be taking the whole conversation, but, so there is, for those who don't know or have never been told, I want to make sure we're clear, there is a pay classification scale, okay? And what it identifies are a list of positions, categorically the grade it's called, and an associated salary range. But because I don't want anybody to feel like we didn't share this, when we knew about it, just acknowledge in the budget, there specifically in finance, there are 2 titles that are not on the pay classification scale. That does not necessarily mean that we don't have people that are doing those jobs. We're just gonna be asking and possibly in July, that we amend the pay classification scale to acknowledge more specifically those titles in finance. And I just didn't want anybody to think somehow it was something that we didn't do during the budget. It's already budgeted. It's just cleaning up that pay classification scale to recognize the titles. That's all it is. So I just wanted to say that now, before we bring it to the council.
And Mayor, if I could just add, I know it was said the org charts are current, they're current as of July 1st, 2020, not
Oh.
current.
Oh, I see the question you're asking.
Right.
Oh, yes, yeah. So in other words, if we made changes that they're gonna be here through fiscal year 20, the org chart reflects starting fiscal year 21, right? So if this department cut 2 positions, the org chart is going to acknowledge those cut positions. Right?
Well,
Not the current.
Right, and we'll have a chance to discuss this, because I would anticipate some additional changes. I don't know. You know how
But,
that would be.
well, yes, maybe, but it may be structurally, but not numeric, you know, the
Right,
count may
right,
be
right,
the
right.
same,
Yep.
they just may be answering to different people.
Agreed.
And all that's the conversation I feel like you're wanting to have in the coming weeks with the council.
Absolutely.
I know that from my experience, because everything intertwined with the budget, if you pass the budget and then you come later and change something, sometimes people are not confident that it wasn't acknowledged in the budget. So I'm letting you know that there's gonna be some amendments we're gonna recommend for the pay classification scale, but we're not trying to change anything in the budget. It's actually trying to catch up with what you're passing in the budget.
And now you get that chance to, every so often, you don't have to do this every year, but because we've got at least 2 new members of the council, you want to look at every department and say, this is what they're supposed to do. This is how many people we're authorizing them to do it with. And then you know what your expectations are. You know who, so it's like, you see Angela all the time, but she has a staff. Not much one now, but she has a staff. Yeah. And you want to be able to say same thing with the fire department, same thing with you. Yeah. And then, because that's going to lead to some other things later. Is you can sit there and say, this is what it's costing you now, this is the number of people you have, but let's take some stretch goals out there and to say, if we're going to commit to paying our people better, then we need to know what we need to operate with, and what's that going to take? And you can look at each one of those positions and you can add it up and say, all right, we can't solve everybody's problem at one time, but let's pick one and then let's solve that one. And as the economy changes or we get some success, then we'll do the next one. Until, we never run out of problems or solutions. You can have that all the time, but you'll see a consistency that goes with it. And it should bring you a tremendous level of confidence, because you'll know, you'll have the data right in front of you. Those are your decisions. And if somebody needs something in the future, you'll be able to rely back on that and ask yourself why. It doesn't get lost in the numbers. You go, well, we've managed to do that with this number of people for a long time. What are we doing new? Does that make sense? And we're not going to drag on any longer. Dorothy's happy. Any questions, Ms. Knight? You ready to call it a night?
Yes, she is.
I stand with Dorothy. Let's call it a night.
We'll pick it up. I appreciate your time. Thank you.